What's up, everybody? Super Lucas 7 here, and I wanted to make a video about my struggles with medication, and why 2021 was such a hard year for me. I would like to get this off my chest once and for all, because I've never done a video. I haven't really done a video as serious as this on my channel, and I like my channel because I get to document my life. I never intended for this to be a big channel. I don't want to be successful on YouTube and get internet fame or any of that stuff. I could care less. But I have my channel for the sole purpose that I want to remember who I was and how I've evolved over time. Yeah, without further ado, let's get into 2021. I didn't make this video then because I didn't feel comfortable, and it's taken me a while to accept that whatever the case, I might as well make a video on this because I one day will look back on this. So I might as well recap it from someone who lived through it 2 years ago. Anyways, so let's begin with 2021. So 2021 was a hard year because we just gotten off of COVID, and there were also really high political charges. So that was a big deal. At school, this was even more prevalent, and obviously virtual school was really hard. Life being more virtual than, in real life, I tended to gain a lot of weight, so I ended up going to like 210 pounds, and this is when I was 12 or 13. That's not healthy. Like, you can't, I don't know about y'all, but like being 210 pounds at 12, 13, I was obese basically, and it was not good. So that was a major issue that I had in 2021, was basically all those things: virtual school, just virtual life in general, gaining weight, political charges. They all made me really anxious. There were also horrible vacations that I took. One of the vacations to the Bahamas, I even made a YouTube video about it, which you can watch. It's called My Weird Ass Trip to the Bahamas, and it's just me complaining about that, basically. And how that was a really hard trip. I ended up getting a thorn in my foot, which would end up becoming really annoying and bug me for the rest of the summer. Then I also had house problems. My house had to be sealed in half because there were just some general issues with it, and the floor was moldy, and that ended up breeding a lot of really toxic bacteria into the air. So I had to stay in my room and play Call of Duty for a while, it was good that I got to play more COD. But yeah, there's some videos on my channel about that if you want to watch those. But that was really, really hard, and that built up my anxiety even further. I also didn't really have friends. You see, one of the big problems with having everything be virtual is that you can't really build your relationships. Relationships are built. They don't stay together if you don't talk to your friends in person for 2 years, which is what happened, basically. And because of that, I lost a lot of really good friendships, and I had to rekindle them later on that summer, which ended up becoming really difficult with the problems that I will explain momentarily. But in general, because I had no friendships, I had no support. And this also culminated with a horrible sex ed class at school, which ended up really disturbing me. It was really poorly done, and it caused me even more anxiety. It caused me to have a really bad freak out because I was just disgusted at humans. I know it sounds immature, but hey, I was 12, I was overweight, and I was off medication, so life was difficult. And also, I was a Zoomer, so that's even worse. But yeah, that culminated in basically no support structure, so I was really, really, really anxious usually, and the only person I could really tell these things to was myself. Yeah, that was not fun. So that happened. I had, as I mentioned, I had house problems, and I had to go to a hotel for a while. Then we went to the trip on the Bahamas, as I mentioned earlier, which ended even worse. And ever since then, I've been horrified of flying because our pilot was absolutely evil and almost crashed us. It was not pretty. And I talked about that in the video, by the way. If you want more details on my near-death experience aboard a small 60s plane, watch the YouTube video, because I guarantee listening to a 12-year-old complain about air travel is the most entertaining thing you could be doing with your time. So, there's that. Anyways, I also had this looming threat, which was junior high. So I had just graduated elementary. And elementary, let's just say because it was virtual, the final few years, I didn't do anything. I didn't do any work. And I was not prepared for what junior high had in store. Junior high was hard. I got put in the hardest class in the junior high, which I actually am grateful for now, but that's another video. And it was fucking horrible. And I predicted this. I predicted that junior high was going to be really hard for me. And lo and behold, I ended up being right. And my parents were like, "Oh, don't sweat it. It's just like more relaxed." And I was like, "No, it won't be," and it wasn't. So I kind of foretold that, but not to sound immature or anything, I just find it funny that I totally predicted that. So yeah, that's one big fat I told you so to myself. So yeah, I get to think about that now. Anywho, though, so I had that looming over me. I had to read some books, and it became really challenging with the summer progressing as it was. So that became really hard. And so, around this time, we took another trip later in the summer to Mexico. And it was at this period in time which my parents realized something was horribly wrong. Because on this trip, I ended up, the day before we traveled, I ended up getting a horrible panic attack, which left me walking around the bathroom, pacing, and basically just convincing myself that I was going to survive it. So they were like, okay, well, we can't have this happen. So presumably they raised my medication and they gave me Lexapro, which I'm still on now, but at the time they were giving me a little bit, or actually a lot more than I am taking now, and it was not very good for me because you see, the dosage was way too high. And I didn't know this at the time, but this was about to radically shift my life. So yeah, so junior high started interestingly. I was not prepared for the work, and I did horribly for the first week. I then started to pick up a little bit, and I was like, okay, I know what to do here. And then the bombshell, the medication. I started having horrid withdrawal symptoms, even though I wasn't on withdrawal. I started basically just screwing up everywhere. My work quality was terrible. I was absent from school for basically all of September and part of October. My work quality was absolute garbage. Like, I mean, like, sentences per assignment, and that's not acceptable for a 13-year-old, at least in my junior high. So that was not good. And these were not even, like, punctuated sentences either. Like, I forgot periods and stuff. I was a mess, and I would leave school early basically every day that I was in school because I felt horrible. The symptoms, I ended up throwing up every morning, waking up at 3 a.m., horrible headache, stomach pains, diarrhea, basically all the known suspects. Started hallucinating really bad and having night terrors. I had a big problem with my immune system basically going down, and I ended up getting sick multiple times, like back to back, which that shouldn't happen to anyone, and it happened to me like for like 2 months. So that was really great. And during all this time, I basically just like rotted away, and I gained even more weight, 215 pounds by the end of this. But what's important is that there was one main thing that kept me going through all this, because I did actually contemplate suicide many times. Actually, I felt like I shouldn't be alive. Why am I still here? I went full like fucking nihilist mode at one point. I stopped believing. I'm a Christian, if you're wondering. I'm Catholic, and I stopped believing in God because I thought that God had abandoned me. So I got really depressed. I started questioning what was the meaning of reality, having incredibly philosophically nihilist conversations with my mom, and she was really concerned. So we ended up going through multiple therapists, multiple doctors, trying to figure out what was going on. And when we found out it was the medication, we started lowering it. Through all this time, there was basically one thing keeping me alive, which was Black Ops Cold War. Oh yeah. I played this game and Halo Reach quite a bit during that time, and by quite a bit, I mean like 6 hours every day from 3 a.m. to I don't know, fucking 9. Then I would eat like one cracker because I couldn't stomach anything else or I would throw up. And then I would play again for the rest of the day. And it was awful. I barely got to talk to my friends during this time. I couldn't even call them because I was just horribly fucking sick. And it was really, really, really stressful. And I kind of have that reputation, and this was pointed out to me in class, that I'm always sick, or I was, and it was basically because of this. I have really bad luck when it comes to ailments, because all my life I've kind of been sick, but I accept it. But Call of Duty got me through this because it was something worth living for, something I could do that was fun and that didn't stress me out at all. I got really good, dropped my first nuke, I was motivated by it. And then, in December, specifically on like December the 9th, I think, around that time, I was like, fuck this. And I went from like rec mode, just like the worst student, no sleep, all that stuff, to just like my body went into overdrive mode. It fell back onto like the auxiliary power, and it went full on like get shit done. So I immediately, in like a week, and I remember this vividly, this is the best week of my entire life, I went from being the worst student at my school, horrible grades, horrible and everything, to all of a sudden being the top in my class, the best presenter during something called World Watch, which was something that we did. There's like mini presentations on news, all that shit. And it was because I got through it and I motivated myself. And ever since then, I have learned the incredible importance of self-motivation and things like that. So my journey through this entire period, basically, if I had to sum it up, was that I pulled through. And this motivated me. And for once in my life, again, I felt like I was in control of myself. I felt like I could focus on my ambitions again. It's something I can't really describe, but the going from what I was in a week, because I was so motivated, I was like full like hardcore mode. Like my essay, I remember this vividly. I walked into class after turning in an essay that I did, which usually my essays were like 50 words. I was horrible. This one was like 700. I decided to go full throttle mode, and I walked in, and my teacher like looked at me and was like, "Are you okay?" And I just vividly remember that. And I remember in December, I reformed. I did all my work perfectly. I started eating a little bit healthier. I got over my symptoms, and I basically punched straight through them. We finally sorted out the medication issues. I did end up having some problems later. And oddly enough, I would end up breaking my leg, or not breaking my leg, tearing my ligament in my leg in January of 2022, which was a great start to that year, even though I love 2022. Best year ever. But, yeah. This is basically just what happened to me and why that year, 2021, scarred me, but also why it's a motivational sign for me. Because to me, the fact that I got through that really impresses me, and it really makes me feel like I could accomplish basically whatever I choose to in life. Because I had no control over that situation. I could have well and truly passed out at any moment because of the pain I was feeling. But I decided to stick through that, and I just basically wanted to share that story and what happened to me, and why I am always nowadays so honestly I have PTSD about that, and I'm finally getting therapy for that. Yeah, and I decided to talk about this now because I'm on Lexapro again, and I had a withdrawal last week that was pretty crappy. It wasn't as bad, but I did have some of the symptoms. Even though I did do my work and I did do all that stuff because I was used to it already. But yeah, this is just my story regarding what happened in 2021 and why it's really important to me. So thank you all for watching, and if you stuck around to the end, thank you so much for listening. I'm just grateful that y'all enjoyed me talk about this, because this is a very personal subject, and yeah, bye.